Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the final episode of KSP Made Easy. In today's episode, we're finally going to be taking that one small step and then eventually taking a giant leap for Kerbal kind. We're going to take our Kerbals down to the surface of the Mun, and then we're going to take them out even further to explore deep into the solar system. Join me down in the VAB as I show you how we build ourselves landers and rockets to carry them. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start by designing a lunar lander. Lunar landers need to have three very important aspects to them. They need to be short, they need to be wide, and they need to be light. They need to be short and wide so that way when you land, if you have any horizontal movement, you don't flip over. They need to be light so that way you can slow down quickly, you can maneuver easily, and you can change directions quickly. With that in mind, the lander I've designed here is a short with a wide leg base, capable of landing on the Mun. It has way more delta V than it really needs, but that is very helpful for later on. It also is carrying all of our scientific experiments that we need, because we've gathered all of our science from around the Mun, but now we need all of the science that we can get from the surface. So bringing all of our experiments with us, including certain experiments that are only usable on the surface, will help us gather as much science as possible. So there are 4 different ways that you can deliver your lander to your landing destination. The first option is you can carry it as a lander in an Apollo style, and then you would have to rendezvous once again in orbit around the body that you're landing on. Or you can land yourself, or you can build the lander around the crew module and deliver the crew and the lander at the same time, and then use the lander to return back to Kerbin. That option can tend to get pretty heavy, but it works just fine in KSP, especially in stock KSP, because it doesn't require all that much fuel to get to Mun. You can also either deliver your lander to Kerbin orbit and rendezvous with it there to deliver it before taking off to the Mun, or to whatever body that you plan on going to, or you can simply deliver it to the planetary body you plan on landing on and then rendezvousing with it there. Both systems work just fine and use just about as much fuel. For this one, I'm just going to deliver the lander to Mun, and then I'm going to rendezvous with it there and prepare for landing. When landing on the Mun, you fly your lander in two different ways. The first way is just like the normal spacecraft. While you're orbiting, you point in the direction that you want to go, make your burns, and then coast till you make another burn. But for when you get closer to the surface, you end up flying it more like a helicopter. So what we're going to do first is we're going to pick out our landing site, and then we're going to go 180 degrees away from the landing site and burn until we're around below 10 kilometers. I usually burn till we're below 5 kilometers, but for you, I would recommend you burn till you're below 10 kilometers, till your periapsis is below that altitude, and then you will coast till you're just about till you're below maybe 15 kilometers. I coast till I'm below 10 kilometers. It's just as good. But wait until you're below that specific altitude and then burn yourself into a suborbital trajectory that will take you over but not directly impact at your chosen landing site. So then you're going to coast until you're either below 10 kilometers, or for me, I get below 5 kilometers. The 10 kilometer for you, you're going to end up using a little bit more fuel, but you'll come in a lot slower and a lot safer. For me, I go below 5 kilometers just to speed things up, but you want to bring yourself down below that altitude and then begin burning off all of your horizontal velocity. And the way you do that is you point directly towards the horizon in the direction that you're falling, or away from the direction that you're falling, sort of towards retrograde, but towards the horizon, and then burning until your retrograde marker slides all the way up to the top of your nav ball. You'll then chase it and kind of do some correction burns where you'll kind of push it towards the center of the nav ball, and then finally you'll lock yourself pointing towards the upward position. And at this point, you're going to change your landing profile so that way you're flying more like a helicopter. I like to face so that way my spacecraft is facing towards 90. So that way, depending on the direction, so that way your windows face towards 90, and that the rear of your, so that would be the forward end of your vehicle. And so that way when you press the W key, you lean forward and you go towards 90. As you lean back with the S key or pull back on the stick, you will face towards 270. And as you lean left or right, you're going to lean north or south. And that makes it easier for you to guide your lander where you need it to go. You want to pick yourself out a landing site that is relatively flat and smooth. It can be difficult to find out which areas are actually flat, completely flat, and I would just look out for sheer cliffs, and the insides of craters are bad locations to land because they tend to have a bowl shape to them. So land outside of craters, away from cliffs, so that way you can land on the flattest possible landing site. Bring yourself in nice and slow. Don't rotate your vehicle. Simply use the leaning features. As you get closer and lower, you can burn off any horizontal velocity that you've picked up while guiding yourself towards the vehicle, towards your landing site, and then bring yourself down to land with less than 3 meters per second of speed on your nav ball. And at that point, you have safely landed. Additionally, something very important to do is it is imperative, very imperative, that once your landing legs touch the ground, you have to say out loud, contact light and engine stop. That's just required. I don't make the rules. So now that you've practiced that a little bit, for this next rocket, I've decided to build an Apollo-style vehicle that heads out to Minmus. I'm going to do exactly the same things that I did, except I'm going to, when it's time to recover the lander, I'm going to do what's called a transposition and docking maneuver, where I simply turn I stage from the lander, turn myself around, and come back to dock with the lunar lander. But other than that, it's pretty much the same flight. And the last thing that I wanted to explain to everyone is some different radial staging methods. The first thing that I'm showing you is one of the most efficient staging methods that was developed in early KSP history. This is known as the Asparagus staging method, and how it works is using fuel lines. You will have a little more 4 to 6 radial boosters, each one feeding into another. So, for example, for this one, I have 6 radial boosters attached to the side of this small rocket, and each one will drain into another booster, and that other radial booster is going to drain into the third pair of radial boosters, and then those one will feed directly into the main stage. So that way, each one runs out of fuel one at a time. Each one starts off, once that one is staged, each one starts off with a completely full tank, and by the time that all of them are finally out of fuel, you have a completely full rocket capable of taking you wherever you need it to go. This is useful for helping getting your getting your rockets off the pad, as extra engines on the side will add an extra amount of thrust, so that way your thrust to weight ratio can be higher. It ensures that you have all of the fuel you need by the time when you get to the altitude you need it to. But it is a little wasteful, as it is difficult to recover those boosters, and it can get expensive because you have a lot of radially mounted parts. Another type, once again, is I call onion staging. Onion staging basically breaks it off in layers. All of the radial boosters feed directly into the center stage. It's not quite as fuel efficient as even though as you burn all of them at once and then you release them, but it is useful to help get vehicles off the pad. And again, your center stage is going to be completely full of fuel by the time once all of those radial boosters are released. And the final method is it's useful for solid rocket boosters that are helpful to give your stage an extra kick to get off of the launch pad, but nothing else really. I wouldn't recommend using it with liquid boosters. I call it the bean style method, where you just mount radial boosters to the side and then release them when they run out of fuel. With liquid fuel, it's difficult to gauge which one's going to run out first, but if you feel like this is a method that you can use, it is a little more realistic, as this is currently the only method that we have as humans to use, because we don't have the magic transfer pipe that the Kerbals have. But it's not as efficient, and it isn't as useful. But those are the methods for radially mounting boosters that you can use. And here's an example of using asparagus staging to put an almost full orange tank into low Kerbin orbit. And as a special surprise for y'all, here is how you get to Duna. The method that I use is I simply launch my vehicles into interplanetary space and then I make my burns while in orbit around the sun. Those burns, it's not any more fuel efficient, it's just a little easier, as it allows you to launch at any time that you want and plan your burns for any time that you need them to be. It allows you to use the same tips and tricks that you use for when getting into orbit around Mun or Minmus. You just need to be incredibly accurate, because as those speeds that you're traveling are incredibly high in an orbit around the sun, and small burns will make big impacts on your orbit. But other than that, it is very easy. It just requires quite a bit more fuel, and it requires quite a bit more patience than the regular. In fact, I recommend that you stick around the Mun for quite a while, but I'll let you watch the 2 missions to Duna that I flew for this series. And I hope you all have enjoyed and have a good day. Once again, I'd like to thank you everybody for watching. It's been a long journey and throughout this series, and I've gained a lot of subscribers since then. I'm up to 40 now. Hopefully, by the end of the next series, I will have gained many more. If you'd like to follow me and keep up with my progress, you can follow me at my social medias down in the description. And if you would like more regular updates or easier contact with me, you can go to my Discord. And if you'd like to support me in my journey and my goal to become an astronaut, you can donate to my Patreon. But once again, thank you very much for watching. I hope you all have an excellent day today.